work at Microsoft as a program manager, and I've been there for about 2.5 years.
So yeah, let's talk about your internship experience. You were in San Jose for a little bit, right? At
Yeah.
Cisco and then Microsoft. So can we talk a bit about that and what you do?
Yeah. So my second internship was working for Cisco. And it was like I said, like out in San Jose. And it was a really, really great internship. This was my first time doing a summer internship away from North Carolina. So I was in a new state. I was working as a software engineer intern. And that was something that, always was my goal. It's crazy to believe that like when I first started in computer science, I didn't think about internships in computer science. I just thought, you know, you do it and then you get a job at the end. I guess like I didn't put together like you have all these small steps. But I was lucky enough to go to an event where they were like, Cisco was marketing. It was actually a Black and Tech event we did. They got me into the internship. And this was like such a good summer because I actually felt like I belonged in tech. So I was working on this one project I was using Java for, and I was helping do like, clean up for like maintenance refreshes for a system, helping with like timeout failures. So that was really cool. And that was something that was a challenge for sure, because like I already shared, it was a struggle for me in general with the courses. So with this, I really had to like work with a lot of mentors to understand the system. Something they don't tell you about is like, when you work for a company, everything's really already kind of established with the code. So you have to go in and understand what's already being done, like someone else's code that's been built, and then add your new knowledge on top of it, right? So it can be kind of confusing. I feel like when you're a comp sci student, like you're given the coursework, you're given the project from scratch, but sometimes like you're adding more layers on top of someone else's. So you have to understand the work they've done to get the work you're doing. So that was new and it took a lot of learnings on that, but it was such a good summer. Like I got to meet so many people during my internship. I got to go to a lot of really cool networking events. The good thing about being there in San Jose was that, it's their headquarters. So I got to like, talk to the CEO and got to talk to like CFOs and the COO and like actually be shaking their hand at like an event and saying like, hey, I'm an intern here. Would love to come back. I love to see what you're doing. And the cool thing was the CEO at the time was actually a UNC grad. So like it was, we bonded over that. So it was really cool. And yeah, so
I know that's what you used as the opening line for the
I
conversation.
sure did. I sure did. I said, oh, I saw that you also went to UNC, me as well. Like, I'm a current student there. Yeah, so it was a really cool time. And my third internship, it was with Microsoft as a program manager intern. And it was, supposed to be in Seattle, like in Redmond specifically, is where their headquarters is in Washington. But it was during the pandemic. So I didn't get to come to Redmond during that time. I had to work, I had to work from home because, everyone in college had to go back home to where they were from, stay with their parents or have your own apartment. I stayed with my parents because it was cheaper. So I was working on my bed, doing all of these things. And my project there was it was to design like a feedback system for different like debit cards being used. So kind of roughly explaining this, I had to design a user interface that would collect feedback from different debit card users buying products at Microsoft. So it was an internal tool used for testing and then pushed to production later on to collect feedback from people on how well the system's doing. So instead of it being like an actual form or something like that, this would actually be something that popped up on the screen as soon as it's done, where someone would fill out. So that was really cool because for the first time I got to use like Figma, which is like a cool like whiteboarding tool. And so that was a lot of fun. It was really cool because I got to see like more about like Microsoft's culture. There were still intern events going on, so I got to meet a lot of really cool people that summer. And it was something that was challenging for sure, but it was really exciting because, like I said earlier, like I was always looking for something that combined tech and business, and being a program manager is really amazing because you get the experience of working on like technical aspects, but you also get the experience of like leading those projects. So I was working with the software developer as well to build this out, but also I was the one putting together like the spec documents. I was the one like, doing the research. So it was a really good opportunity. And the thing with Microsoft is there's not a lot of companies that take new grads as a program manager role. A lot of times they're like someone that has to have like X amount of years working as a software engineer before they can take on that role. So it was a blessing because I got to see it so early on. And then I got to experience as an intern to know that, okay, I want to do this full time, which is why I wanted so hard to get the full-time position with Microsoft, because it allowed me to see a lot more in terms of like a leadership position than any other job could have offered.
And so you're a software engineering intern, your second internship, and then you jump to PM. So like, first off, what is a PM? What's the difference between a PM and suite for the audience that, in case they might not know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
two, why'd you make that switch?
yeah. So a software engineer, they're normally described as like doing back end code or front end code. They're the ones that kind of build out the system or they build out the UX in order to run different programs off of. So this is the person that actually is going to be working with like the Java languages or Python, HTML, CSS, and you're the ones that are going to be kind of building out what people are going to use. Product manager, or in Microsoft it's called program manager, is the person that has to understand those technical requirements, right? And they have to, be able to build out, okay, this is what the business is looking for. This is how it should work. You need to be able to create a technical design to show to software engineers for them to build out, right? So a software engineer, like they are a very big role, but the PM sits between the business and the software engineer layer. So they're pivotal in understanding what's going on. They're also the ones that like lead all the different projects. So um, for me, the reason why I was interested in product engineering is because when I was a software engineer, I was like, okay, so what is this going to be used for? Like, how does it help? What's the bigger picture? And they were like, just do it, like, and for me, I like to understand like the why we're doing something. So as a product manager, like that's your whole job, is understand why we're doing it. What is it going to be used for? How much revenue is it going to produce? What is the timeline to do it in? How are we going to do iteration with planning? So that excited me more than just kind of building out the software. So that's why I decided to switch into product management, because I loved that they were able to like do both. Like I still have to understand how the code works. I still have to like, sometimes like pull up a repo or do some stuff in SQL, but I don't have to be so heavy on the coding side to where I'm not able to learn about more of like what it's going to be used for.
You got me smiling because I remember when I was an intern, I was also curious about the product I'm working on, like what
Yeah.
is being used for. And a lot of times I would kind of step outside and say, hey, like, what is this being used for? And sometimes they'd say like, hey, just code it. Don't worry, like,
Yeah,
don't worry
exactly.
about it. Just kind of keep going, but
They're like,
yeah,
it's on the business. We got to keep doing it.
right. But one of the advice one of my previous managers told me is that make sure to not get in that mindset. Obviously delivering on your executables or what it is you have to code if you're a software engineer, but also peek outside like Charlie did, or like I did, peek outside and try to see what is this being used for? What is the bigger picture of this company? How does this relate to the industry? So yeah, cool. So what's that day to day like? Being a PM. And how
Yeah.
was that? And also, even before that, like how was the onboarding period for you? In your first year, a few months of being a PM.
Yeah. So you'll hear, if you watch different YouTube videos, you'll see the day in the life for every PM is a little bit different. They all kind of have like the general end. But for me, being a new grad and being a PM, there's a certain level of like kind of expertise they're expecting when you come in. They're still treating you as like a new employee. So like, they're gonna like teach you about like the organization you're in, what we work on, what your domain will cover. They're not just gonna throw you to the wolves. So they're gonna give you like kind of like small projects. And then as you like, knock those out, they'll give you more responsibility. So that's was a good thing because it gave me time to kind of like learn about everything. So I would say the first 6 months is really you just learning as much as you can. It's about you like asking those questions, taking on different work, shadowing different people to learn how to be a good product manager. So that's kind of like, like was the first few months. The day-to-day life for me, it varies, but to kind of start off with just like, how my day normally looks, I wake up in the morning and, from probably like 8 to 9, I'm like checking emails and responding to everything. The reason for that is because throughout the day, it's going to get very hectic with a lot of meetings or like, questions being posed. So it's nice to like wake up in the morning and just make sure everything's clear. For me, like I have to have 0 messages in my inbox at all times. I cannot have 400, 500 emails because it just stresses me out. So I like to like go through everything. If it's important, sometimes I'll flag it because you can flag emails in Outlook. That way, like I know when to come back to it at the later day. So then my meetings, there's normally about like maybe like 5 to 6 each day. They cover different areas. For me, I work more on the consumer space in Microsoft. So some stuff I see is like Skype or like movies, TVs. I look at like stuff like when it comes to like software apps, and also like when it comes to some Azure based products, if they're consumer facing, Office, Xbox products. So my meetings kind of vary. And so that's kind of cool thing about it because like I get to see something new each meeting. It's not kind of stagnant talking about the same project throughout the whole day. So with that, like I try to have all my like notes prepared beforehand because sometimes you're juggling different products, right? So you really have to like be kind of like in tune with what each one stands. So like for me, like I work on probably like 10 different things and having to like, at a drop of a dime, be able to answer a question about um, something you've been working on that might not be on top of mind, but it's still something that's their top of mind. It can be challenging. So each day I'm going to those meetings, making sure I have things prepared, taking notes. That way I can send out like, meeting notes, action items to people, and then following up on those items later on. And then so that I would say like that's kind of like day to day, like like making sure you check your emails and respond to messages, go into all your meetings, taking notes, and action items, planning for things in advance that might come up. And this means more of like prepping for your meetings coming up, prepping for like those monthly business review meetings. So a lot of it's preparation stuff, a lot of it's communication aspects. So a lot of the time, like I'll get questions from different teams asking like, developer questions. PMs are kind of like the first line of defense before those questions come to developers. So I do a lot of screening of things before I take it back to like software engineering team to not like take up a lot of their time. So day to day is honestly just a lot of communications, a lot of action items and planning, following up on products to see like, like where each one stands is really important. So I know that was a lot, but hopefully that's a clear
No,
answer.
no, no. Yeah, you've covered a lot of it. And, I imagine as a PM, it's unique in that you really have to know your stuff because engineers, you're the front line, right? So engineers are always going
Yeah,
to be asking you questions. And if you don't know your stuff, you might lose that trust factor with them, which I imagine
exactly.
isn't good, right?
Yeah, and it's a lot of conversations and meetings we have to have with software engineers, right? Because you have to be really, really crystal clear in what you're trying to build out. Otherwise, it's not going to be done correctly. And then also, like as a PM, you still have to keep doing those check-ins on the code and be like, okay, this is what the business is now saying. You might have to make a change. So like, there's a lot of processes that go behind a lot of what the software developers are building. And PMs kind of like shield everyone to that. So like you're kind of taking like the heat sometimes, but it's the best of ways too. Like it's like you get a lot of learnings from doing stuff like that.
Yeah, so I play soccer. So the analogy I like to think of is, the goalie. The goalie is like a separate entity from the players. If a goal
Yes.
goes in, everyone blames the goalie. So I imagine it's kind of similar to the
Yeah.
PMC thing, but
I would say like so because I play soccer too. I would say PMs are more defense
okay, okay.
because we're always the one that like sends the ball up ahead. We're the ones that like help with delivering the products, but also like I would say the software engineer is the goalie because like before that
Ah,
it should not come to like them unless like something really slips up.
I see what you're saying. Cool. And how do you like navigate? Like, let's say you have like a deliverable, but
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to meet that for external reasons or like whatever, like, how do you navigate, like, hey, like, communicate, like, hey, I can't meet this deadline, or like, what do you do? What's the process like?
Yeah, there's it's something I've learned more recently is there's no such thing as over communication. So as soon as there's an issue, just bring it up to your manager, communicate that up to your stakeholders, and your stakeholders are going to be people that are like heavily involved in the products. Either they could be like the one that is working with the business to, provide the requirements. They could be the one that's like on the legal team. They could be financial people. So you have to notify all of them of, hey, this is going to be pushed back. Then you have to come up with like, a new date. So I always just let people know if there's something slipping. And that's the best thing you can do, because the worst thing is to have people think it's going to be delivered by a certain date. So if things do get pushed back, then we kind of log it in a system called Azure DevOps. Like, we're able to record if things are at risk, when the due date is, like what their iterations are. So we go into a tool like that to really just help us monitor those things. But communicating it out on email is very essential, because you always want like a paper trail for people to look at, and then always updating, like, whatever kind of system you use to track those items, always updating those and providing communication on what the issue is, why is it being delayed, to make sure everyone's kind of on board and understands what we're driving. Yeah, and there's a lot of times that happens. There's a lot of times that dates get pushed back. And it could just be for say there's a lockdown where we can't do deployments on a certain time. That pushes back teams deployments. Say we just have people not in office, that can push back a deployment. Or even like, if something breaks, it could push back deployment or unclear business requirements. So there's always something that's going to push back deadlines. Like that's probably like the name of the game in PMing. It's just how you like handle those, and making sure you communicate those things clearly is what makes the biggest difference. And then the sound cut out for me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. I was like, is
Yeah,
he
you're
ignoring
good.
me? Cool. Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, versatility seems very important as a PM. In terms of like your tool stack, like, I guess, what do you use to communicate with other engineers or your coworkers? Teams, Outlook, Azure DevOps. Do you use Azure DevOps for like tracking of tickets, or like things to do, or what
Yeah.
else?
So it's you kind of hit all of them actually.
Okay, those are the three.
So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, email is going to be used more for stakeholders. Like, like that's kind of like, the business presentation of everything. Teams is used more for kind of like small tasks and just answering like, questions here and there. So a lot of times, like if I'm communicating software engineers, then it's going to be through I would say through Teams, which is Teams kind of like uh a thread such as like, group me or Slack. It's kind of just like on the side chat. So I do that. I also use Azure DevOps. That's more of like a product manager tool as of right now. Like devs sometimes use it, like, if it's like a bug or a task, but a lot of like deliverables or scenarios are being more driven by PMs. So that's used more to kind of like track like where we stand on things. So email and DevOps are more used business wise. Teams and sometimes DevOps is used for engineering questions. And a lot of times, like when it comes to engineers, I set up a lot of like meetings, just because I feel like it's easier to talk things through and like pull up pictures and diagrams and explain to someone, as it is to like having, 3,000 emails or messages sent back and forth to try to like explain something.
I didn't screw up on the muting thing this time. Cool, awesome, man. Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience and what you do as a PM. That's great to hear. Did want to transition into asking you what's life like as an adult, and is it better than college? Like, are these years the best years of people's lives, or what do you think?
Um,
Clearly, you don't think so. I don't know. I had mixed
well, okay,
feelings.
okay. I'll break it down, because
uh,
um in college, I felt like, I knew everything still, like I of course grew and humbled myself more, but in college it's kind of that mindset of like the world is mine, and like, I'm the exception to anything, like I can handle anything, like nothing can touch me. You have that safety bubble of not paying bills, which is very real. And then at least I was blessed and I had to pay as many bills in college, but it's still kind of like that freedom aspect. There's just a lot of like less responsibilities in college. So like I feel like in college you can wild out, you can do a lot, you can not worry about so much of the day tomorrow because you just live in the moment. Adulting, adulting is hard. Adulting is so many responsibilities that they don't tell you about, from insurance to like savings, 401ks, just understanding like bills in general. There's like, its own avenue when it comes to like, settling down or like dating, or when it comes to like just being productive, being held to a certain standard. So adulting is fun because there's times where you have a lot more free time than you did in college to take those trips. Um, but the downsides of it, it's a lot. It's a lot to manage sometimes. You do have like a lot more like availability to like make more decisions for yourself. But I would say college was definitely better because it was less responsibilities, more free. Adulting is good because I make my own money and I can take myself and afford things that I like. But the downside is there's a lot of catches to adulting. And I know you just kind of started this journey too. So like I know that like, you just started working full time, and you'll love like, being able to like meet new people and everything. But wait till you have all those bills, like, oh my God, like dental, health savings accounts. I just there's so much stuff I just didn't understand, and then it just hits you like a bricks. Like,
Honestly, I think I'm gonna do in a few weeks or a month or something. We'll bring you back and talk about this, because I think this is a whole other
yeah.
conversation in itself. But no, I definitely I see what you're saying. I'm still fresh out, so for me, it's better than college. College, like, there's these weird hours where you gotta like study for a test or do homework that I
Yeah,
hated.
that's definitely one of the
Here,
benefits.
here I feel like I have a routine, which is nice. But yeah, we'll bring you back to talk about this more.
Okay,
Um,
I
but
have
yeah,
some opinions.
awesome, awesome. Yeah, so as we close out, I wanted for you to give you a chance to just like, I guess, give some advice to students, like in regards to maybe taking classes or progressing through college, getting an internship. Like, is there anything that you wish you did, or is there anything that you did that worked that you think others should
Yeah.
do?
Um, One, always go to office hours, even if you don't need help. It's very kind of like political. So say like if you make best friends with the professor, then not only are you learning the material better, but if you slip up, they're gonna like be like, okay, let me help you more. Or, they might kind of like pass you along a little bit because
Yeah.
they'll see you're trying. And also it's good to just understand the material in general. So always go there. Don't be afraid to ask for help. That was always something that I struggled with. I thought that if I asked for help, it made me weak. So that's something I think every student needs to work through. Is it's okay to ask help, and it's okay to accept it, like from anybody. And then when it comes to just feeling like you belong, always find your community. Sometimes, like I feel like students are told, like you just kind of like have to fit what the culture is, and it's not true. If you feel like you need to build out something new, then do it. If you feel like you're not welcome at the table, then make your own table, which is kind of similar to what we did in Black in Tech. I would say it's very important to work on networking while in college. A lot of people think that means like with your students, with your peers or professors. No, it means like going to the corporation events, like going to the marketing fair, and really building those relationships is very important. So I would say like definitely go to all the career fairs you can. And they don't just have to be in the department you're in, right? So a lot of times people that are in comp sci, they would only go to the comp sci career fairs. There's a lot of different career fairs going on. So you can go to like the medium of journalism's career fairs, you can go to the business school's career fairs, because at the end of the day, they're always looking for tech people, right? So sometimes they might not even see it when they go to like those business events or those media people, but they're still will hire you. So there's a lot of chances and a lot of good opportunities to get hired by going to different career fairs that your university holds. And then I would say the last one and probably the biggest one is just give yourself grace. Like you're not gonna do everything perfect. Everything is not gonna be like how you had it in your head sometimes. But just understanding that, this too shall pass. Saying like, like maybe I didn't do well this day, but what was the lesson I'm supposed to learn? And getting back up and trying again the next day. Don't let anything like cripple you, would be a really important part. And then understanding like your own mental health on things and making sure you give yourself grace and understanding and love to treat yourself really well. And then I think that's everything. The little gems.
Yeah, you covered everything. One thing I want to add on is, guys, like the first year or the first semester you take those comp sci classes, they're gonna be hard. All right, they're gonna be hard, but I promise it gets
Yeah.
better. Charlie and I can both attest to that. It gets better, but you'll never like know everything. Like I feel like engineers that are or PMs that are 10, 15, 20 years down the line don't know what they're doing. They're kind of learning as the day progresses. So just make sure you guys keep that in mind. Yeah, cool. So I think those all the questions I have today, Charlie. Thank you so much for coming on. Truly means a lot.
Of course,
I,
man.
do you want to drop any socials? I know, did you have a YouTube channel? I wasn't sure any socials or no.
No YouTube channel anymore.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
but you can follow me on LinkedIn though.
Okay.
That's kind of like the best way to get in contact with me.
Okay, I'll drop his name or his URL, and he'll probably be watching he'll be in the comments. So if you guys have any questions for him, feel free to just ask, and I'm sure Charlie will,
Yeah.
reply. You'll do that, right, Charlie?
I will. I do respond really well on LinkedIn.
Okay, just not on text message. You walked into that one, but all right.
I did.
Now I know where to contact him. Cool. All right, well, thanks, Charlie. Thanks everyone for watching this video. If you like this content, please feel free to like and comment. It truly means a lot and it helps with the algorithm. And yeah, I'll make more of these to come. And definitely check out my other videos if you haven't. Charlie, any last words?
No, man, I'm just so proud of you. You're doing such amazing work, and I'm excited to see not only what that you can do with this YouTube channel, but what you're gonna do in your career and your life. So super happy for you, man.
Appreciate that. I didn't pay him to do that. Right. Yeah, cool.
All right, bro.
All right. Peace.